Hi, my name is Elle Billing. I am a chronically ill queer femme, and I'm tired. I'm here this episode and every episode to dig at the roots of our collective fatigue, explore ways to direct our care in compassionate and sustainable ways, and to harness creative expression to heal ourselves and to heal our world. Welcome to Hoorf, Radical Care in a Late Capitalist Hexscape. My guest for this episode is Annie Toro Lopez. Annie Toro Lopez is an author, chef, and transformational speaker who teaches audiences how to thrive through life's challenges while navigating a celiac diagnosis and profound personal loss during a national cooking competition. She proved how mindset and food can fundamentally transform health. A former teacher whose students achieved top rankings, Annie authored Simply Gluten-Free, Real Ingredients for Everyday Life, and founded the Denver Area Women's Network, supporting 500 plus women through life's transitions. Welcome, Annie. Hi, Annie. Welcome to Hoorf Podcast.
Hello, Al. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here, and I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited to chat with you today. Before we started, you gave me a little tour of where you are, and that was nice.
I did,
Met your
yes.
dog.
And my dog. Yeah, and my RV.
Oh, my dog is usually sitting behind me or near me when I'm recording, but my mom is getting ready down the hall, so she's like on duty, like sitting outside the bathroom waiting for my mom. So she's not even in the room, and she usually is.
I find like if I do it here where she wants to be, see, it just sort of lights up behind me.
Oh, yeah.
It depends on the time of day, like when I'm doing it depends. But she's right here.
And it looks like your dog doesn't mind being on camera, where as soon as my dog senses any sort of camera, she is blurry like Sasquatch and she ruins every photo,
That's
every video.
hilarious.
But she's
That's
so photogenic.
funny.
She's so pretty.
Aww.
And she's just so cute. But she's like, no,
Aww.
I'm so embarrassed. Stop looking at me.
Yeah. She's actually kind of the same way. With the camera this far away, she's not as sensitive. But if I try to hold it, she just looks away. She's like, no public right now is what we always laugh. We're like, no public right now.
Yeah, no public. I'm sure that works really well for her as a brand ambassador.
Right. Yes, exactly. She's a brand ambassador for Pet Lab Company. So
that's what you were saying.
Yeah, so that's been fun when we were traveling. So I was out on a book tour for my cookbook.
Yeah. And we'll get into that in a little bit too. So
yeah. So we were out on tour and she just had a blast. She was like such a hit everywhere. She had a lot of firsts, right? She went to patios and restaurants and art museums, and it was a blast. It was so much fun.
Yeah, that's great. I have just a million pictures of my dog either sleeping or blurry because those are like the only ways I can get photos of her.
That's perfect.
All right, so I'm going to dive in here.
Absolutely.
How have you received care this week?
I love that question, and it made me really think about receiving care. And it made me think about like where it comes from, and the first thing that truly came to my mind was self-care. Like I take care of myself daily. I meditate every day. I have a space I've created for myself that is in our unfinished basement, and I have a inflatable hot tub down there. Nice. Now in Colorado, let me say in Colorado that's doable, and I recognize that there are probably places where it's very, very damp or where that might not work. But here it's fine because we're like, bring on the moisture, right? Because it's so dry here. It's so dry here.
Yeah.
I hung shower curtains around it that are like botanicals and very beautiful. And one of them is a tree like a, and sort of an impressionistic rainbow tree. And that's my focal point. And most of the time, not always, but I meditate and I do yoga. And so that is like, and that's not 100% daily, but it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way that I protect my peace. It's a way that I ground myself and keep away the negative thoughts. I use music a lot. I use music for healing. I use
Mm-hmm.
music for meditation. Some of the meditations are guided, but not all of them. A lot of them are just my own. I love Yoga with Adriene on YouTube because she's so loving and she's so self-loving and she's taught me a lot about self-care and self-love. So that's something that I do for myself daily. I realize I'm really fortunate to be in this space and in my life that I can do that. And then I sort of listed it. I actually, after I read your question, I listed it and really thought about who I receive outside of myself. And I thought, my kids came for dinner and we had so much fun and we did a viral recipe. And my husband, who always supports me and like is working on my website because he's just amazing that way and does the things. And then I had a wonderful conversation with a former student. I taught middle school and she's now a close friend. And we were even talking about doing some work together, which I'm so excited about. That was so affirming and loving and kind. And I have a larger network that I've created, and we'll talk a little more about that later, but they're so loving and caring. And I actually didn't have the spoons, if you know what that means, for an
Yep.
event.
Yep.
And nobody judged. It was no big deal. I mean, they let me know that I was missed, which is what you want in a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I actually gave that question a lot of thought. I really did. I really appreciated it because it made me grateful, when I wrote all that down. And I thought, wow, I've been really isolated and lonely at times in my life, really isolated. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't feel that now. And what a wonderful, joyous thing. And I appreciated the question. Thank you.
Well, thank you for answering. I used to be a teacher too, and I have
You
those
get it.
connections with former students too. One who texts me almost daily. He's also an artist, and so he sends me pictures of his current projects, what he's working on. He's like, which one do you like better? What do you think of this? And
Wow.
recently he gifted me a gorgeous charcoal portrait of my dog, and it was just so beautiful, like to have that gift from him and to have that connection with a former student who just is now, a friend.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? Isn't it
Yeah.
wonderful? And like they're the people who like when you met them, they might have been struggling and they weren't necessarily, it's not that they were great students. It's not that they were, it's that they, had that just you connected
Yep.
on that level then, right? Then and there. What grade did you teach?
I had a very special job. I think I worked at a school for the deaf at a residential school.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I was really involved in my students' lives and some of my students I had for many years. It's nice to have that continued relationship where they
Yeah, it
keep me up to
is.
date on their lives and we can like bond over things like art. Like, I'm an artist, that student's an artist, and we send texts and images, pictures of what we're working on. And
I love that.
it's nice to see him thriving in his art business
Yeah,
now.
isn't it? And having those conversations about, those connections that happen
Hmm. Yep.
in a classroom and in that kind of environment and as a teacher. And yeah, I loved my students. I loved my kids. I left with severe burnout. I had crazy burnout when I
Yep.
left.
Yep. Me too. I was
Yeah,
really sick when I left.
me too. How long did you teach?
13 years. I didn't last very long.
I subbed for 3. I went back to school. I didn't get my degree till I was 41.
Hmm.
And I was actually at the time I was a volunteer firefighter. So I
Mm.
was serving on the fire department. And one of the things I really loved about the being on the fire department was the training, like all the classroom work. And I did a lot of EMT, but I went back to school. It was my third try.
Mm.
The
Oh,
first
yeah.
time I went to school was right out of high school, right at 18, and as an English major. And then I went back, and then I got really sick. Same thing, right? I got so sick, and I couldn't go. I couldn't. My doctor, like, I was pregnant, and my doctor, like, put me to bed.
Hmm.
I had lupus.
Oof.
So I left again and went back again. I got my degree in English, and then I taught middle school for 10 years, but I'd subbed for like 3. So
Hmm.
I kind of, I learned a lot. I love my kids. It was It was amazing. I love
Yeah.
that.
And I've said many times
Okay.
every single student was my favorite student.
I know,
For
right?
like, oh, they're my favorite. Well, every student's my favorite, but this student's my favorite for this reason, and this student's my favorite for
Yeah.
this reason. Yeah. I also taught English and reading. So
I love that. Yeah, yeah. And what grade? I'm sorry. What age?
I taught
Oh, you
every
said that in the yes, yes,
it was at
yes.
the school for the deaf. And so I did 8 years in mixed grade elementary, where I taught at some point every grade from first through fifth. And then they
Sure,
moved me up to
sure.
secondary, where I taught sixth through 12th. So in 13 years, I taught every grade from first through 12th, plus some super seniors who were like 19 and 20.
Yeah,
So
yeah. My sister ran a school in North Platte, Nebraska that was called TLC, the Learning Center, and she worked with students who might have been super seniors as well,
yeah.
or other things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But she wanted them to,
Yeah.
get where they needed to be. So
Yeah.
that's what she did. Yeah. And I taught in Aurora. I taught also, like you said, literacy, and I taught social studies too. So I was thinking when you said that, I was thinking about the year that I taught 7th and 8th grade social studies. So I taught world history and U.S. history over a period of about 1,000 years.
That's a lot to cover.
It was I can't even. I can't even. I was really lucky. I was like, we were at Barnes and Noble one day and we're at the clearance books, right? And
Yeah.
I found this like world history timeline. Like it
Yeah.
was just like, and I was like, this is it. This is what I need. Oh my gosh. And we would read that like driving. Like my husband would drive and I would read it out loud so that I had some concept of like what I was even so much material, right?
Yeah.
So, and he was so helpful because he's like, oh yeah, well, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't know anything about it. But anyway, but I mean,
Yeah.
I knew, like I taught American history for years too, but oh gosh, when I was doing both, that was like 5 preps because I taught reading and writing and then social studies, 7th and 8th grade. It was
And that's how burnout happens.
exactly. And who has time for self-care? Like, as if I could go downstairs and meditate and in my inflatable hot tub. Come on. I
Great. Too
couldn't
busy
even.
grading.
I mean, right? Like, who has time for themselves? That's so hard on teachers, right? Like, that's why we lose so many great teachers, is because they're so committed and you can't sustain that. Like, nobody can. Nobody can
Yeah.
sustain that.
And I've said several times on this podcast when talking about my own burnout and illness is that I think the age of like the 30-year veteran teacher is over in a lot of ways. Because
Absolutely.
like I burned out after 13 years and like every single teacher that I worked with had some kind of long-term chronic illness that was
Hmm.
stress related. And several teachers died from
Yeah.
like
Oh,
cancer and
yeah.
stuff. And they
Hmm.
were like working the whole time they were sick
Hmm.
because they needed the insurance. Like
Hmm.
it is not the same field it was when we were going to school.
Absolutely.
I was talking with a friend of mine who worked in a different department who also no longer works there. And I said to her, did you ever look back and feel like we were in an abusive relationship with our job?
Yes. Oh gosh. Yes. We
Yeah.
talk about that. Oh, and I had my first years, I had a really horrible principal and it bled into the whole school. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that the attitudes and the bullying and the meanness and all of that. It was insidious to the whole school.
Yeah. So you mentioned how the first time that you tried to go to school, you ended up with lupus. And so one of the reasons I left education was because I was so ill. So both of us have like a kind of an acquired chronic illness and like a division in our lives where it was like the time before and the time since, like that demarcation line.
Absolutely. I
Um,
agree.
can you kind of walk us through like what
Yeah.
that journey has been for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Again, speaking of isolation, right? So a lot of
Hmm.
autoimmune diseases are very isolating because, and
They
now it's
are.
so much, having this podcast, and also, I've been on other podcasts about autoimmune specifically, and it's huge to have, what you do and connecting people and allowing people to have comprehend that they're not alone. This isn't just, it's not just them because you think it is, right? Like it's
Yes.
so, and it's hard to talk about. It's hard to, like, nobody wants to hear about it all the time. And so having these outlets, I think, are so important. I was diagnosed with lupus when I was 22. I'm pretty sure that I had had it from the time I was at least 18,
Mm-hmm.
probably before, but at this point in my life, then I had a doctor who was willing to listen and hear me and cared enough to like pursue and she, of course, because female doctors listen different. She said I wrote she was like, "Wow, I had one thing after another."
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her, I said, "Do you think that I'm a hypochondriac?" Right? I'm like, and she was like, "No, no, because everything you come and you say, like, I've got this or I've got this, it all checks out on like blood work. The the strange part of it is it comes and goes.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have things like hypothyroidism, which doesn't come and go. It's
Right.
not like an in and out kind of thing. And then later it was gone. And then I would have whatever. I had so many different, I can't even, it's been a long
Oh,
time.
I can so relate to that. Both
Yeah.
the
And
feeling like a hypochondriac, but
yes,
like knowing like so strongly that something is not right.
something's not right. And so then I went in and I had ulcers on my legs. Like they would come
Oh.
from the outside, it's from the inside and work their way out. That's how I can describe them. And they were horribly painful. And I could barely wear shoes. I was working as a vet tech at the time. I've worn a lot of hats. I always say
Mm-hmm.
I've worn a lot of hats. I was working at a vet office, and it was like the end of the day, and I took off my shoes, and his wife was just like, "So what is wrong with your feet?" And of course, we deny the power for the human brain for denial is unbelievable. And so I was like, doesn't everybody have? Just like, no, no,
Doesn't everybody? Oh. No, I'm not laughing at you, but I'm
I
like
get it. I
the
feel you.
denial and also when you think you don't have any other choice but to power through,
Yeah.
you just do it. Yeah.
So I was really fortunate because she was going to a doctor, gave me his name. He was like booked up. And so he had this brand new doctor in the office from Chicago. And so I got in to see her. Well, she ended up being like Denver's #1 doctor for like years in a row.
Wow.
She was amazing. I had her we were together for 25 years. We had our babies at the same time. I mean, she was amazing. She saved my life so many times I could not even. And I mean that not just physiologically, but she heard me. She listened.
Hmm.
She didn't just brush me off.
I have a physical therapist that I feel that way.
Yeah.
He pulled me back from that edge when I was in so much pain and didn't think I was like, is this the rest of my life? Like in this much pain? And he's like, no, we can do something about that. And he
Yeah.
believed me when I said I'm in this much pain.
And feeling heard is like crucial, right? We
Hmm.
have to feel heard, and women aren't heard like historically, right? Let's just not even go there. But um, so she diagnosed me. My ANA was like, I don't remember what it was exactly, but I remember her just being like, this is like, I hear a lot. We've never seen this before. Like my husband and I just laugh. When we go somewhere and they like, we've never seen this before. I'm like, that's the story of my life.
Hmm.
So I went to a rheumatologist, I got on Plaquenil and I got on steroids and I got on all the drugs, right? I don't even remember. It was a lot.
Hmm.
And I was still like so, so, so sick. And so this was, well, and then I have two kids, and I remember them telling me that it was that, they didn't advise me getting pregnant because it's a high risk pregnancy.
Uh-huh.
What I didn't understand at all at the time, I just didn't comprehend, is that an ANA, I don't know if your listeners are familiar, but it's an anti-nuclear antibody. So your immune system is producing an antibody that attacks and kills the nucleus of your cells, which clearly they can't live without.
Hmm.
And it can attack anything, right? So I had
Yep.
skin involvement, I've had kidney, I had lung collapse, I had pericarditis. I mean, I can just
I mean, and that's why lupus is such an
It's
insidious
so hard.
illness
It's
because it can attack any antibody system.
exactly. And so what I really wasn't comprehending at the time was that it could also attack fetal tissue, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I had two pregnancies. My doctor, who was wonderful, he
Hmm.
was just like, he was like, no more kids because it was so difficult. And they were both in the NICU and all of the things, right?
Hmm.
And he's like you have two beautiful children and they need you. And that I think that's when it, I don't know why I was. I mean, I guess I didn't hear what I didn't want to hear. That's how we are.
Hmm.
And that, learning to hear what I didn't want to hear, that came from mental health care, like going to therapy, hearing the things, talking the things, facing the demons, all those things, right?
Hmm.
It really got to the point where, I was seeing all these doctors all the time, especially through my pregnancies. I mean, I was at the doctor's office once a week
Hmm.
minimum. Then I was on all these drugs and I didn't know if I was sick because I knew the power of the drugs. I knew what I was on. And I didn't know if I was sick because, of the drugs. I didn't know if I was sick because my body was telling me. I didn't know. I just didn't understand. And the question I kept asking myself was, how does this make sense in any way, shape, or form that my body is producing something that literally wants to kill me, like literally would shut me down, my heart, my lungs, whatever. And I really, really dug deep into what's happening in my body. Like, and I learned a lot about mind body connection. I learned a lot about like long before like the body keeps the score or any of that or any of that.
Hmm.
I really asked that question of myself, like, why is this happening? And that led me to therapy. A lot of things, not that wasn't the only thing. What directly led me to therapy was having my first baby and not being able to stop crying for 2 months, like literally didn't stop. It's like this.
Hmm.
And so I was very fortunate that I had a physician's assistant, my obstetrician's physician's assistant said, well, sometimes, having a child can bring up past trauma or whatever. I'm sure she did not use the word trauma even in those days. Nobody recommended therapy in those days,
Hmm.
right? I was so lucky.
Yeah.
I was so lucky. So I had an amazing therapist, Carolyn Early, who is no longer alive, but she was wonderful and learned a lot about so many things, unearthing my own sexual abuse when I was a child and
Hmm.
having my own, facing down my demons is what I call it, bringing them to
Hmm.
the light. We all have them, the shame spiral, all those things, right?
Hmm.
So she helped me so much with that and learning how to take control of the voice in my head that always told me whatever the messages are that, are self-loathing or self-defeating, self-limiting.
Hmm.
And that was key. So it was that. I also use visualization, which is
Hmm.
scientifically proven to alter your body and body chemistry. And I had my own sort of like cartoon that ran in my head that was about a lot of things. It was about my immune system and T cells and what was happening and I would have conversations with my immune system and I would say, look, like here's the deal, right? Like if there's a virus or bacteria or like it's cancer, then do your thing. But the vital organs and stuff, like off limits, like no more, stop. Like this
Hmm.
has to stop. And I would have this conversation in my mind with my immune system.
Hmm.
And I think, the combination of things and certainly nutrition, like we haven't even talked about that, but absolutely nutrition was also. So it's not just one thing. It's not like, oh, I have this magic, there's this magic thing, but it's a combination of things. And one of those things I think is just learning that we are enough, right? Like that's kind of said a lot, but gosh, I think it resonates and that's why it's said a lot, right? Like
Yeah. Well, like it sounds like you took care of your whole self.
my whole self.
Like you were taking care of your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, and you
Exactly.
were seeing the connections between them. And I
Yeah.
know from talking to other friends who have lupus that like stress management is such a huge part of staying in remission when that happens. You know, I have another friend who was in remission for like 8 or 9 years, and it was like stress that ended up causing a flare.
And it's hard because when you have these autoimmune, when you're sick all the time, it's hard to work, right?
Right. And like illness itself is stressful.
Mhm. Mhm.
And being able to manage that makes a big difference
Right.
in the severity of it for sure.
And I think that, it's important to always keep in mind that like my experience I know isn't everyone's experience, and that
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of, I've been fortunate in a lot of ways that I've been able to maintain myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, part of the catch-22 is that if you can't work, you don't have health care. And if you don't
Yes.
have health care, you can't take care of yourself. And if you can't take care of yourself, it's hard to work.
Yeah. It's a beast.
That's a tough one. I mean, that's in
Mm-hmm.
the society in which we live, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean our society is disabling and it generates chronic illness. Like
Precisely.
I know you mentioned nutrition and earlier you showed me your
Uh-huh.
cookbook. I have a lot of food restrictions because of my various illnesses, and I've
Mhm.
had to accommodate and sort of adapt my diet on the fly as I've gone over the last dozen years or so. But I'm kind of shooting from the hip, just like, oh, I can't have this anymore. I guess I'll change it this way. But you're a chef, right? That's one of your many hats.
Yes, yes, that's one of my many hats.
Yeah, and so you have a different background than me. And so when you were diagnosed also with celiac disease, you were able to adapt to that as well.
So just to be clear, I am not a formally trained chef. I've lived all of my life around food professionals. I was raised in a household of food professionals. My uncle had restaurants, and in fact, he was the one who's like, don't, don't do this. Don't,
Don't go into this field.
don't own a restaurant. Don't. Mm-mm.
If you want to manage your stress, don't go into.
Exactly. Well, I always tell my friends, like, I love the Costco Business Center. If there's a business center in your city, go there because nobody's ever there. It's always empty. I know. Costco, empty. I like to go and look at all the restaurant supply stuff and I just drool, right? I want this, I want that.
Uh-huh.
But I recognize the difficulty of the restaurant business. Let's just put it that way.
You'd rather continue to enjoy cooking than have to, yeah,
It's so much.
yeah.
And I love what I get to do because as a food writer, so I'm a food writer, my reviews on Google have like 1.3 million views, I think.
Great.
Top 10 Google reviewer for eateries. And I write, I've done various food articles and, food related things. This is my second cookbook. So mostly I'm a food writer.
Okay.
My mom had a deli. I grew up in such a food culture. I grew up in Nebraska, where an area where like you went outside and you bought, picked vegetables and you brought them in and you cook them.
Yeah, I'm in North Dakota. My food
Yeah.
cooking knowledge comes from growing up with a grandma who cooked everything, you know?
So my parents were born and raised in New Jersey and then relocated to Nebraska, and they would have these huge dinner parties, and they would compete with each other. So we did elaborate cooking growing up. And my mother was such a food enthusiast that she always had food TV on in the background. So I
Mhm.
grew up with Julia Child and Jacques Pepin and, The Galloping Gourmet and all of those things. And America's Test Kitchen was always on in the background. And it still is. We still are
Mhm.
completely food obsessed. So I'm a home chef. And I
Mhm.
feel I've pretty much, pretty well proven myself. Cooking in commercial kitchens has been really fun. I've been doing that more now. So that's what I was saying. So I get to do kind of all the fun stuff of like a restaurant. So I get to go into restaurants, and I've been hosted by restaurants and, the Rebel Rise gluten-free bistro and bakery in Omaha, and then
Okay.
Morgana's. She's a legendary pastry chef in
Okay.
in Missouri. So that's been kind of the best of both worlds. I get to kind of do the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
when I was diagnosed with celiac, I was really, really sick, like not able to get off the couch sick for a long time, a long time. And from about the time I left teaching, it took 10 years to diagnose. And finally, I was demanding the diagnosis. So I was diagnosed by biopsy because I was like, I need to know what this is. So that was the spring of 2023. And my dearest lifelong friend died of pancreatic cancer. And then 6 days later, my sister died of a fall. And 3 weeks later, I was in first place in a national cooking competition hosted by Chef Carla Hall to benefit the James Beard Foundation. And I was diagnosed with celiac. I really was just flattened. Like, I don't know how else to say it. I literally couldn't lift my head off the pillow, like emotionally flattened. And I was in a particularly bad day. And I posted in a celiac group, and someone said, hey, you might like this group of senior women. And it was nice, but I was still really lonely and I really needed connection. So from that group, which is from was a national retirement organization, I formed a Denver group, which at the time was named for that group, but we are now independent. We don't a part of any other larger group. But I founded the group and I decided, I thought there's a loneliness epidemic, right? Like kind of that silent epidemic that was here before COVID, before the whole pandemic, and now is worse.
Yes. Yes.
And so I was really lonely. I was just super lonely. And my people were gone. And I had this celiac diagnosis. And my best friend she was a nurse. So she was who I would have called and said, tell me about them. And of course, my sister. So I was really lonely. And my marriage was not in a good place at the time either. It's in a much better place now, but it wasn't then. So I formed this group and I put it out there and I just set up a coffee and I decided I wanted to do it because I had celiac and I was just learning to navigate this and I didn't know. I'm learning to eat out. I'm learning all the things that go with it. And I didn't feel like I could expect anyone else to do like due diligence in calling ahead to a restaurant or whatever. And so I was like, it's fine. Like, I'll just set it up. So I was consistent. And I set something up for I picked one day a week, but we're at different times, fairly consistent times now. It's been 2 years, but different places, different locations. So we go to coffee shops and we go to restaurants and then I try to do two coffees, one lunch and one outing that isn't too expensive or free a month because, a lot of seniors live on a tight budget and it's getting harder because everything's so expensive. And I decided to do it once a week instead of once a month because to alleviate loneliness, you have to have a point of entry. You can't have the point of entry too difficult. And if I do it once a month, then if you miss one, it's 8 weeks between connection.
Yeah.
So I really felt like it was important to do a once a week. So I did it by myself for quite a while. And at first, it'd be 2 or 3 of us. And we talked about this not too long ago. I don't think we ever had one where no, it was just one person or no one showed up ever. But sometimes it would be 2. Now it's 12 or 15. We had 150 people overnight, like almost overnight when I put this out there. And now we're about 500 and growing.
Wow.
So we're the Denver Area Women's Network. And it's just, Dawn, we call ourselves Dawn. And it's a great group. And we've really made true connections and real friendships and people who care about each other. We have each other's back. I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm an introvert. I'm a writer, right? I'm kind of a loner. Like, let's be real. I live in the middle of nowhere in Colorado. Like, I don't think you can see out my window, but I live on 5.5 acres in the middle of nowhere. So I've never been a big joiner. Like, I've never been a part of a big group that's a group, but it's delightful. It's delightful. And it's been a lot of support, I mean, and I've told them before too. I was like, well, I did this because I needed it.
Yep.
And I'm so glad that it also feeds other people, right? That it helps other people. And we've really very deliberately stayed agendaless. We get together for friendship. It's a
Mm-hmm.
friendship group because we've had a couple situations, where some people have wanted to bring their agenda to the group.
Mm-hmm.
We need a place now more than ever to feel at peace, to feel connected, to feel like heard, and to have someone say, "So, how's your granddaughter's baseball game?" And it's sort of like, I think it was Winston Churchill who said during World War II, if we don't protect art, if we don't protect music, if we don't protect that sort of connection, what are we fighting for?
Mm.
This is what we protect. This is what's we have to protect. And that's the connection and the lovingness and the kindness that we can show to each other and ourselves, right? Like to show to
Mm-hmm.
ourselves and back to self-care, right? That's all part of self-care. Then you can show up
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you have that to draw from.
Yeah. So one last question.
Sure.
And I mean, you kind of ended on a little bit of a profound note anyway, so maybe you already answered it, but maybe you didn't. What is one true thing that you have learned from this whole journey and experience with chronic illness and writing your cookbooks and all of the things we've talked about today?
Thank you. That's a really good question and I appreciate it. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to think about it. And it's been one of the hardest lessons for sure. Like really,
Mm-hmm.
really difficult for me. I think it's a hard lesson for all of us, but really being in the here and now,
Mm-hmm.
the power of not allowing our feelings about the past, the lens that we look through from the past to color where we are in the here and now, in this moment, or to allow the anxiety about the future. And there's plenty of that, we know, to creep in where you can't focus on what's in front of you. And I used to think that that was a way to avoid, but what I learned once I practiced it, and it took practice for sure, and I still get anxious about things that are happening around us, and I'm better about the past. The past is gone.
Mm-hmm.
I can't influence it. I can't change it. I can't do anything about it. So, and that's not easy. That's hard. It's really
It
hard
is
because
hard. It really is.
you have things that it doesn't mean that you're not justified in the feelings that you have. What I learned is that being in the moment means that it's type of forgiveness, I guess, in a way, right? I'm forgiving myself. I'm forgiving the past. And what I learned was forgiving others or forgiving the past isn't about the forgiven. It's about the forgiver.
Mm.
It's about letting go of that stuff. I said that my husband and I weren't in a good place and we're in a much better place now. Part of what I learned was when he's doing things for me or he's trying to connect or trying to, in the way that he knows how, rather than looking at him and thinking, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do this or I'm resenting whatever. Because, we all have resentments against each other when you live with someone. Like there's no
Mm-hmm.
perfection there. So being able to let that go and being able to just say, like, I'm just going to look at you in the here and now and like in this moment and what you're saying and what you're doing and what you're offering from the place where you've learned, I've learned, we're not those people anymore. That helped my relationship a lot
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't feel the pressure and he didn't feel the resentment behind my eyes. Resentment's hard to hide.
Yeah.
And all of that, like understanding being here and now, having this conversation with you and being fully present with you. I'm not thinking about anything else. I just want to be present with you. The saying, my husband and I talk about it, when you're washing dishes, wash dishes.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate the questions very much. And I appreciate your having me here.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. When
Yeah,
you're washing dishes, wash the dishes.
that's right.
Yeah. And it's usually when I'm doing those kind of chores that my mind wanders the most.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's not bad either. Like
Yeah.
it's sort of like the creativity of boredom, right? Like that's a
Oh,
good thing.
absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's usually what I'm doing when I'm doing chores.
yeah, absolutely.
But
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
I
yeah.
totally get what you mean.
I think that there is a presence of mind of being in the
Hmm.
moment and experiencing what's happening in front of us, and especially in the culture that we live in now that is so other focused. And that's just the culture. I'm not that's not a judgment. I'm just like, oh yeah, so yeah, this is what's happening. But yeah, we're very other focused, and I think that being in the moment is really valuable.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Hoorf. To get the complete show notes and all the links mentioned on today's episode, or to get a full transcript of the episode, visit hoorfpodcast.com. Join the blessed herd of St. Winkus. By signing up for our newsletter, you can get Hoorf episodes delivered directly to your inbox. What's more, you get invitations to our monthly Coffee and Biscuits Chat, where you get to hang out with Ricki and Elle, talk about the show, and connect on the topics that mean the most to you. You can sign up for that at hoorfpodcast.com. If you become a patron for only $3 a month, you can support the creation of this podcast, help pay my editor, and join a community of caregivers out here just doing our best. Thank you again for joining me, Elle Billing, the chronically ill queer femme who is very tired, on this episode of Hoorf. Until next time, be excellent to each other. Hoorf is hosted by Elle Billing at Elle and Wink. Audio editing by Ricki Cummings at Ricki Poo. Music composed by Ricki Cummings. Hoorf is a production of Elle and Wink Art Studio, LLC, all rights reserved. Hoorf can be found on all social media platforms at Hoorf Podcast, at HOORF Podcast.